Welcome to Midtown Connects, sponsored by MidtownMemphis.org, a community-driven nonprofit promoting economic development, cultural activities, and the historical integrity of Midtown Memphis. I'm Porsche Stevens. I serve on the executive committee for MidtownMemphis.org, and this afternoon, he is a friend to many, okay? Definitely a friend to Midtown Connects, and we are super excited to have Marvin Stockwell, the co-founder of the Coliseum Coalition, to share with us and bring us up to date on all the good things that are happening in the heart of Midtown. We have such fond memories of the Coliseum.
Yes.
When I tell you time well spent at the Coliseum, Marvin.
Oh yeah,
Speaking
me
of
too.
high school graduations, my high school class of 83 from Melrose graduated at the Mid South Coliseum. You know, I can remember going over there to the Parliament Funkadelic concert at the Coliseum. Also, you know,
That's awesome.
You know, family-friendly activities. Monday Night Wrestling. I wasn't a wrestling fan, but I knew a lot of people that went. That was a huge, you know.
I wasn't either.
Yeah.
I wasn't either, but I've grown to appreciate wrestling for it being part of Memphis's funky, eclectic DNA.
Exactly. So if you would share with those who may be not really that up on, you know, what's happening with the Coliseum. We know that it closed back in 2007, right? Nobody was able to go in there to do anything. Can you share with us and let people know, hey, what's going on?
Yeah, just to set the context a little bit, the Mid South Coliseum was closed in 2007. A Department of Justice order gave Memphis, the city of Memphis, the option to do one of two things: close the Coliseum or bring it up to Americans with Disabilities Act standards. Now, at the time, Memphis had a brand new FedEx Forum, or relatively new, been open 2 years. We still had the Pyramid as a venue. And I think, quite frankly, you know, in looking back, we can be a little bit sympathetic with people who made the decision to close the Coliseum, because Memphis was at what I would call a low civic ebb, or of enthusiasm, of confidence in itself. And, you know, flash forward to today, and we've got transformative projects like Crosstown Concourse, Claiborne Temple, Tennessee Brewery, the Chiska Hotel, the 19th Century Club, all sorts of other neighborhood revitalizations coming about. So I feel like the context we're in now, Memphians have grown to expect adaptive reuse, renewal of all types. So, but the Coliseum did close, and it was closed. And in the fall of 2014, there was a plan that called for the demolition of the Coliseum, a planned pursuit of the tourism development zone. And that was a failed attempt. They did not get approval at the state back then. And, you know, in a way, it was because of our activity. The threat of the Coliseum being demolished is what spurred us into action. And then all during 2015, it was a public campaign about the Coliseum, and Memphis resoundingly spoke up for the Coliseum and said, we love the Coliseum. We don't think it should be torn down. Public opinion polls showed that everyone loved the Coliseum. In 2016, our preservationist architect board member, Chooch Pickard, led a team of fellow architects, ADA experts, environmental, all make and manner of disciplines.
Right.
They spent 3 full days in the Coliseum to produce a thorough assessment of the building, and found that the building was in great structural shape, and they estimated it would cost $7 million less to rehab than had been previously estimated. Now, you might say, of course, the folks who love the building are going to come up with the friendly assessment. But the city of Memphis, once it changed from the Wharton administration to the Strickland administration, they took another run at the tourism development zone. And in doing so, they did their own due diligence on the building and hired the firm of Allen and Hochul to do an assessment. And that assessment corroborated Chooch and his team's assessment that the building was structurally sound. And it did one other helpful thing if you're a fan of the building. and that is they raised the amount that it would cost to demolish, that they estimated it would cost to demolish it from $3 million, the previous estimate, to between $8 and $10 million. So where things sit for all of us as Memphians is we have to ask ourselves the question, who would spend between $8 and $10 million to tear down a building that everyone loves, is full of so much great, authentic history, and that two separate assessments have shown to be in excellent shape? That's in a area of town that is now that the TDZ has lurched into gear and has been approved at the state level, has investment all around it. Why would we do that? Short answer is we won't. We shouldn't. And I don't think it makes any sense. I don't think it fits any political calculation, any business test, case assessment. It just doesn't make any sense. So where things stand is, I think we can confidently say the Coliseum has been saved.
All right.
The thing that leads me to say that with confidence is that when the city, the Strickland administration, pursued the tourism development zone and got it passed, one of the reasons they were able to get it passed, in fact, a lot of people doubted they would be able to. People say, I'll believe it when I see it. And of course, we were hopeful that they would get it passed. But one of the impediments that they ran into was that those state building commissioners, they said, they looked at it and said, didn't we turn this down a few years ago? I mean, fairgrounds, youth sports. I thought and so they're like, no, it's different. It's different. And so they had to build in a section of the application that said, this plan is different than past plans in the following ways. And one of those bullet points was the Coliseum is preserved and not demolished. So now we have the city including it in its TDZ plan. Gotcha. That give us surety forever? No, but I do think it gives us a measure of confidence that the city doesn't have any immediate plans to tear it down. I mean, and it's cost prohibitive to do so anyway. So it's time better spent to figure out what we're going to do with it. And that's the challenge that remains.
So since, you are speaking with such confidence that we have saved, or you all have saved the Coliseum, what's the cost to repurpose it? What's that price tag looking like? Yeah,
of course, it all depends on exactly what the end use is, which is still being debated. Our opinion is that the highest and best use of the Coliseum is as a mixed-use facility, much as it once was, but modernized, made ADA compliant, and with a different mix of event types and fixed uses. Quite frankly, I think we should learn from I think we should learn from Crosstown Concourse. Yeah. You were on the inside at Crosstown Concourse. I was at Church Health all along that arc of the building being built out. So I know that from the day that it was made public, even far back when it was secret, the mix of uses that were planned for the building were different than what the actual end mix of uses was. Right. So I don't think we have to know today exactly down to the bay what's going to happen there, or whether it's going to be more hockey and more or indoor soccer, and how will concerts fold in? Is wrestling going to return? I mean, there's so many variables. I don't think we know that. So the asterisk that I'll put next to it is to say end use will drive costs, but it would be too vague to leave it there. Chooch's team's assessment estimated that it would be $25 million to get the Coliseum back online. You could even go more bare bones than that, but just to get it kind of back to a shape people would recognize, it'd be about $25 million. Now, the Allen and Hochul assessment estimated $40 million. Oh, what's the difference, right? The difference comes in the level of gold plating you'd want to do. I think a really good example nearby that we can look to is the Levitt Shell. The Levitt Shell, its first renovation just got it back online in a presentable, good way. But and Memphis fell back in love with the shell. I did.
Yeah.
But what I didn't, and I thought it was amazing. You know, I thought this is awesome. But they had always, it turned out, planned to do a second capital campaign and then really enhance it, right? So a few years ago when the Levitt Shell made those new enhancements where their screens were brighter and they had the better lighting for the stage and a better sound system and some enhancements about people backing trucks up, and et cetera, and some food, food truck areas and decks in the back. Those were phase 2 enhancements. So had they put all of those enhancements in the original plan, well, the original plan would have cost more. I think the same thing can be true for how we look at a phased approach to bring the Coliseum back online. And I think we would be well served to reopen it minimally and then look to gold plate it. But the Allen and Hoschel assessment assumed some more bells and whistles.
Yeah. You know, with Midtown Connects, we encourage people to send questions in through Facebook, also email and texting. So I've got a few questions I want to throw your way.
Sure.
As we get this conversation going. One is, has the pandemic extended the odds of redeveloping the Coliseum as an assembly venue? So have you all been affected by the pandemic at all with your efforts?
Oh, sure. The pandemic has literally affected every facet of our lives, right? Yeah. We had been working hand in glove very closely with the city of Memphis. That fairgrounds housing and community development team of Paul Young, Mary Claire Voorhees, Lindsey Jackson, and then COO Doug McGowan. All those folks have been fantastic to work with. And we could not have done this without them. You know, like we in the grassroots have different levers to press than our colleagues at the city. We could not have gotten the TDZ passed in Nashville, which greatly enhanced, obviously, our odds of getting it done, because now there's essentially lead funding that's pouring investment dollars into the fairgrounds. But one of the outputs of, I'm going to turn off my, so we don't get any more dings here. Sorry about that. Hopefully you can edit this out. Back to the pandemic thing. The pandemic, obviously, we had been planning for pop-up events inside the Coliseum.
Right.
Even pre-vitalizing events outside, like we've done in past years, right now wouldn't be possible. Mm-hmm. We've been working hand in glove with the city over the last 3 years. We've done north of 100 VIP tours for potential investors. Mm-hmm. And that's been done in conjunction with the city. In 2019, we did 2 community cleanups in conjunction with the city of Memphis and Clean Memphis, and got like overnight the max 50 volunteers that Clean Memphis said they could shepherd the process on. So we have a good working rapport with the city of Memphis, and we are in discussions with them about what it would take to have pre-vitalizing events inside the Coliseum. That all boils down to, the allergens in the air need to be removed, and there are certain things that would need to take place to have it be a pre-vitalizing space. We toured Service Master Restore through the building, them and some of their subcontractors or vendors that they work with, other environmental services companies.
Yeah. And
about 4 months ago, and they said we could get the place entirely occupiable in a kind of short-term, bare bones, wouldn't address any of the ADA requirements, but people could enter through the bay door, and as long as everything's at grade, we could do all that. And they sent us an estimate, $250,000. Well, so, the Coliseum Coalition doesn't have $250,000 laying around, but so obviously we've been thinking about events, and that was the impediment. What stood between us and having an occupiable space was $250,000. Now, I think the thing that has presented itself in the pandemic, if anything, has the pandemic adversely affected us? Yes. But I think if we think creatively, it may also have given us a great gift, if Memphis chooses to do this. And that is Coliseum Coalition President Roy Barnes got curious, and he thought, I wonder how many more people we could be vaccinating if we had the Coliseum.
Yeah, I saw your article.
The Pipkin building.
Yeah.
And so he and Chooch Pickard, Roy's an IT guy and a number cruncher, and Chooch obviously has a great spatial mind, and they got to thinking about this. I can't take credit for any of the actually figured it out part. But in the end analysis, we could be vaccinating at about 4 times the pace if we had the Coliseum. And with all these federal dollars out there that are already available, and with additional federal funds now looking very likely. I mean, it's not a matter of if, it's a matter of exactly how much.
Right.
Congress is working that out, but more funds are on their way. And in the grand scheme of things, like to me, $250,000 is a ton of money, right? But and it's no small amount of money even for a municipality. But when we're talking about new variants of the virus, presenting themselves, we don't know how much more virulent they are exactly. They're more contagious. They're less likely to be controlled by the vaccine. There are a lot of unknowns. I think it's something we should consider. When you look at Los Angeles appropriating Disneyland, now I know they're in a much worse position than we're in, but it just shows you exactly what other municipalities, the scale and pace that they're starting to gear up to. So, maybe we won't do it, but one of the side benefits of doing it would be assuming we could find federal dollars to make it happen. Mm-hmm. We could increase our vaccination capacity and also have the building prepped so that we can continue to ideate on as a community about what the Coliseum will ultimately become. Because if we know that the Coliseum is saved and that the cost to demolish is prohibitive, and it's the emotional heart of our fairgrounds that is now being rebranded as Liberty Park and invested in.
Yeah.
I mean, it's right there as an opportunity.
How long would it take for the Coliseum to be prepped? Say if the opportunity presented itself to money's in place and you're ready to rock and roll, how long would it take to prep the building to allow people to come through?
Service Master Restore said they could do it in less than 2 weeks.
Okay.
Yeah. So the beautiful thing about this is the city may want to just table it for right now. It's not in the cards. Maybe they know something I don't. Maybe there aren't federal funds available. I don't know. And that would be a lot if you weren't planning on spending it. So, but I'm just saying, if things get dramatically worse and or federal funding becomes available, I feel it's just something that Memphis should kind of just bear in mind. Keep it in mind. I mean, God forbid that it would get dramatically worse. I hope and pray it doesn't. Right. But when you look at what's happening in LA, I've got a PR colleague, friend of mine, who is the PR person for the LA County Health Department. And she and I, going back a little bit over email, they are just like working nonstop. Mm-hmm. It's really, really bad in Los Angeles. And we just simply don't know that this won't get worse before it gets better. And I'm just saying, let's keep tucked in the back of our civic minds that that the Coliseum could be the clutch player sitting at the end of the bench, that coach needs to call. Get in there, Coliseum. Yeah. Give it your best shot. Crash the boards hard and play good defense.
Well, let me ask you about the VIP tours. How does one get signed up to take that tour?
Yeah. They get in touch with us. Now, I will say this. They're not just – a VIP tour is not just I have a friend who thinks it'd be fun. Mm-hmm. trust me, I'd love to have, this is the reason we're working so hard to get pre-vitalizing events in there so that we can get the general public inside. We want that, but the VIP tours, the kind of like rubric, if you will, that we've worked out with the city is, are they obviously, if they're a person with the money, clout, and influence to move the needle on a big idea, if they're an investor type, or if they have access to a group of investors or whatever, obviously that checks the box. If they are a technical expert of some ilk, and where we really have a degree of latitude, quite frankly, is, are they a community leader? This could be something like, the executive director of a local nonprofit that has a music focus could check that box, because music is part of the historic brand of the Coliseum, and we want anyone with a really working knowledge of music to want to come in there and think about concerts, the needs of musicians, load in, load out, all sorts of practical outputs to all that. So we do have a degree of latitude on that type of stuff that the city has generously kind of afforded us. But that said, we're also constrained by numbers, even pre-pandemic. Like, our tours can only be so big, and quite frankly, we want to keep them intimate so that we can have a really robust conversation. So obviously, if you know anybody, and this is what we charge everyone who takes the tour, if you know somebody who fits that description, please put them in touch with us. And we have toured through tons and tons of technical experts, community leaders, community influencers, and some deep-pocketed individuals. I'll just be totally frank. So that's how you get on the VIP tour.
I want to be on the tour. I have to make my list. Create a list.
I can't imagine I haven't offered you a tour. You definitely qualify. Let's talk.
Okay, no doubt. Well, since we know that, hey, we're not going to demolish the Coliseum, but in the process of, doing the rehab, doing a reno on it, will you all be allowing people to grab mementos? Will you be selling the seats? Which is really a potential fundraising idea.
Yes.
Go ahead.
That's a great question, Portia. And truth be told, I don't know the answer to that.
Yeah.
I will tell you this. One of the tours we were given, and I'm going to forget the gentleman's name. He runs a business that deals in memorabilia, and he was on the tour, and there's a ticketing area. There's all sorts of memorabilia. There's all sorts of ephemera just lying around there, even still, even after, and I should say, the library came in midstream. They saw our activity with the cleanups in 2019, and they thought, we should go in there and see what's lying around. Yeah. And they have actually extracted a good bit and put it as part of its permanent collection. And also, they've curated an online collection of memorabilia that you can find online. That's really fascinating. Bill Dries wrote a great Daily Memphian story about 6-8 months ago. But to your point, so there's this guy who runs a memorabilia business, and he saw all this, and he's like, hey man, come here. Do you know how much money I could make off this stuff? And he said, he picked up a roll of Mid South Coliseum parking passes. He said, you see this roll? And by the way, right in the periphery of our view is like 50 more of these things, right? They're just lying there. He said, I could sell one parking pass for $3. He said he deals mainly in Elvis memorabilia, but he has a strong business in Mid South Coliseum stuff, partially connected to Elvis having played there, right? So And I stopped him right there. I said, I love this idea, but this property belongs to the city. So I called over Mary Claire Bories, one of our colleagues at the city in that HCD office, who's worked so hard and has been such an incredible asset to the project. And I said, you need to talk to her about this. And they did have a conversation. They did exchange cards. I think it's a foregone conclusion that ultimately the city will want to auction off what they're able to auction off in an effort to raise money. And lots of people have said, you got to auction off the seats. They're folding chairs up in there. Like, you know, there's so many like wrestling fans. It's like, what I wouldn't give to have a Mid South Coliseum chair. I remember the time Jerry Lawler came in. I mean, you know,
Right.
those chairs are like in those old footage of the wrestling matches you can go.
Yeah. How cool. How cool. So
Yeah.
Marvin, any parting words you'd like the community to know about the Coliseum Coalition and all the good work that you guys are doing trying to save the Coliseum?
Sure. If they go to coliseumcoalition.org, they can learn more about what we've done. coliseumcoalition.org/exec, EXEC, is the shortcut to our executive summary. And that executive summary has the links to all of our research that we've done over 6 years now. So there's stuff like a business plan, Chooch's team's assessment, links to the Allen and Hoschel assessment. But there are 3 different documents where we help people understand what the Grizzlies non-compete says and doesn't say. It does not, by the way. The popular read on it is that like the Coliseum can never reopen because of the non-compete. Totally false. But it's hard to counteract that narrative when that's so easy to understand. It's like, oh yeah, it can't be a venue ever again because of the Grizzlies. Well, that's not true. And if you ever wanted to, I mean, we got a flow chart, y'all.
Yeah.
Sorry, we got a flow chart, colored graphs, all sorts of stuff. But there's all sorts of wonky information. There's a statistical analysis of the decline in indoor seating capacity versus population growth. We've done a lot of research over the last 6 years to be able to say with surety that we know what we're talking about. We still have plenty to learn. We are not the Coliseum know-it-alls by any stretch. But so I would say coliseumcoalition.org. And then we're on all of the social media sites that you might expect. We're Coliseum Forever on Twitter, but Coliseum Coalition has a page and a group on Facebook. There are any number of different ways to kind of like reach out to us, and I'm just at Marvin Stockwell on Twitter. So give us a shout. Maybe we would like to take you on a VIP tour. Maybe somebody watching this is the missing, money big dog that's like gonna make it happen. Who knows?
There you go. And they're living and working in Midtown. That's what's up, right?
Yes.
Well, no doubt.
Or maybe they've got a friend in some other city, whatever.
There you go. Right. We're putting into the atmosphere that the Coliseum will be reopened.
One other thing that I'll say in closing is, like, I think it is a misread to think that the only people who love the Coliseum are people who are old enough to have had experiences of the building. Now, I, as a person who went to Tiger games with my grandparents during the Keith Lee era, and who saw Kiss there and saw the Globetrotters there and graduated from college there, I am one of those people. And that's one of the luxuries of being a 51-year-old guy. But there are 20-somethings that we've engaged who've come on, not so much the VIP tour, but like they signed up for our cleanups, which was really the only public opportunity to be in the building, and you had to agree to work your butt off and get all dirty to be in it. But some of those young people, and they're journalists who are young people when they're in there. We've had investors from investor types from outside Memphis come in town to take a look at the building, and it's amazing how much people who don't have any history with the building are absolutely jaw-droppingly impressed with the Coliseum. It's an authentic asset. Like it just emotes that, right? Like it's just so easy to understand that. And that's what younger people want in a city. They want authenticity. Memphis, broadly speaking, is starting to really capitalize on that in the way that we reimagine our civic assets. It's a completely on-brand idea to reopen the Mid South Coliseum. It is part of Memphis's new mantra.
Yeah, no doubt. Plus, it looks cool. The dome
Totally
looks cool. It looks cool.
Yeah.
Plus, I look forward to just being able to come back over there and just hang out, you know?
Exactly. So many people want it reopened for a host of reasons, but one reason we didn't even get around to talking about, but I mean, it could be an economic powerhouse, quite frankly. Quite frankly, it could be the economic power that fuels the TDZ and makes it work.
Yeah.
But it's all about an amount above a certain increment, like baseline.
Mm-hmm.
Well, the Coliseum currently is bringing in $0. So if it brought in dollars north of zero,
right,
with all of those tax receipts would benefit the TDZ. But
there's a lot of redevelopment happening in that area between the Beltline, Cooper Young,
so much stuff in Orange Mound welling up organically.
Exactly. This just makes sense.
It really does.
Yeah, it's all aligned.
Yep. Preaching to the choir.
Always a pleasure to talk to you, my friend.
Such a pleasure, Porsche. Thank you so much for having me on.
You're welcome. Marvin Stockwell, co-founder of the Coliseum Coalition. Thank you so much for sharing your expertise and your time with Midtown Connects.
Many thanks.
You can always go to coliseumcoalition.org. And remember, Midtown Connects airs every first and third Monday of the month. February 15th at 2 o'clock, we'll have Leslie Smith, the Executive Director of Blight Authority of Memphis, Inc. on Midtown Connects. So you guys have a productive week. And hey, man, we can talk all day, right?
I know.
We can talk all day. Thank you so much.
I know, and we probably should.
I'll take you up on that. I'll reach back out to you, okay?
We'll go talk inside the Coliseum. How about it, Porsche?
I would love that. Thanks, Marvin.
Many thanks.